New Zealand's relationship with the United States seems to be getting increasingly serious and cosier. While in Washington yesterday, Defence Minister Jonathan Coleman announced measures to step up military cooperation between the two countries. Both he and Prime Minister John Key appeared unconcerned about suggestions the Americans could be spying on us or we could be helping them to spy on others. And joining me now is international relations expert, Otago University Professor Robert Patman. Thanks for your time. How significant are these moves to extend the military cooperation between New Zealand and the US?
Oh, I think they're pretty significant. Just if you look at in the next few months, you've got contacts between the two militaries in Honolulu, that's the New Zealand Defence Force, and the American military. Then you've got a New Zealand frigate participation in a multinational anti-piracy exercise off the Gulf of Aden, and then you've got New Zealand's participation in what's called the RIMPAC maritime exercise, very large exercise, and during that exercise, for the first time, New Zealand will be a military ship from New Zealand will be allowed to enter Pearl Harbor. This is the first time, the first visit by a New Zealand military ship for more than 30 years to the United States. So I think all the signs are that the tempo of the military dimension of the relationship is picking up. And
this is as the US says that the Asia-Pacific is its priority now. So there's a real thawing of the relationship. But does this risk our relationship with China, which is also looking down here?
Well, I think that is a risk, actually, and I think New Zealand has to be very careful. I think the minister, Jonathan Coleman, the defence minister, seemed to laugh off suggestions yesterday when questions were raised about New Zealand's participation in what's called the Five Eyes intelligence sharing agreement. I'm not sure he struck quite the right tone about that. There's a lot of concern, of course, in this country over the GCSB, which is part of the Five Eyes intelligence sharing agreement, and there's now mounting international concern, not least in Europe, about how the Five Eyes agreement works. And Angela Merkel, of course, is furious with the Americans for apparently monitoring her cell phone. We've also had complaints from the Spanish leadership and the French leadership about the way the Americans have used this global surveillance operation, which New Zealand is a part, against their leadership. So this is a sensitive matter, and I think New Zealand's going to have to not only watch its relationship with China, but also watch its relationship with the Europeans. Remember that something like 18% of New Zealand's exports go to the European Union.
OK, so it seemed to be dismissed, though, by both Jonathan Coleman and the Prime Minister yesterday, that they're not concerned about, one, whether the US is actually spying on us. Why they would do that, we don't know. And secondly, and more importantly probably, our involvement in the Five Eyes, that they are totally unconcerned.
Yeah, I think that's partly a political judgment. Remember, John Key said a few months ago that New Zealanders were more interested in snapper quotas than questions of intrusion onto domestic privacy by GCSB and civil liberties. I think that's a misjudgment. I think this is a sensitive issue in this country. And I think the other thing is, that's the internal dimension. The external dimension, which we've touched on, New Zealand, part of its diplomatic credibility, and remember, New Zealand wants to get on the UN Security Council in 2014, in October. Part of its credibility depends, Simon, on striking the posture of having an independent foreign policy, one in which it's quite prepared, if necessary, to go up against interests such as the United States. It did that in the past over the nuclear dispute and, of course, over the Iraq invasion. This sort of waters down this image that New Zealand is not particularly concerned about some of the revelations coming out of this intelligence sharing arrangement.
OK, Professor Patman, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.